Hello everyone, my name is Oscar Reyes and I'm a lead software engineer here at Tracetest. Today I'm really excited to show you something that we have been working for the past month, that is our new Cypress integration. So we're going to be starting by looking at our PogShop demo, which is a Node.js, a fully distributed service with Node.js, and it's also instrumented with OpenTelemetry. And by that, we're going to be creating a test script against the UI, which is going to be importing a Pokemon. The import a Pokemon feature is a two-step process, which includes the service that sends a message to a queue, RabbitMQ, and then a worker which processes the message and sends the information to the database. So in this case, what you can see is the UI being tested by the script clicking on the import Pokemon button, then opening the modal to finally put the empty ID in the field, and then clicking the OK button. With this, we can see Pokemon being added to a list. I cannot pronounce that name, sorry about that, but then this is the final result. Now, what I have done, if we move to Docker, is that I have turned off the worker process and I'm going to be running the test again. What we're going to see is that the test is going to pass successfully, even if the Pokemon is not imported. We have this lonely Pokemon over here, and that's because the Cypress script is not testing what happens in the background processes of the RabbitMQ section. So what we're going to be doing here is enable our trace-based iteration, so we can check that the trace-based tests are passing, and if not, we can break the entire Cypress script to get a full view of what is going on. So I'm going to move to the code. I'm going to enable some lines in my test script, and the test are going to be executed again. So now, after the trace-based test finishes, I'm going to get a result and a link back to the trace-test server to find out what happened. So we can wait a couple seconds for this to be done, and then we can get the result. As you can see, the scripts are pulling to get the results back from the server, and at some point I should be able to see the summary of what happened. Okay, now I got the error. It says that there is a test failing and because the test specs, and we can follow this link straight to the UI. So I'm going to go to the desktop and I'm going to open the run directly. If I move to the test section, I see that one of the specs is failing, which is it should import the Pokemon. So if you open this assertion, it's waiting for a span to exist with the name of import a Pokemon and the span type equals general. And as this step of the process is not found, the entire test is failing because of this error. So now what happens if we re-enable the worker? So let's go back to Docker. We click the start button, and then we can rerun our test. So we rerun our test over here, and then after a few seconds, again, we will expect the result if it passed or if it failed. So as you can see, it was successful, so it means that everything worked. And then we can go back and find the test in our TraceTest UI. If we move to the test section, we can see that all of the process is now completed. So in this case, we can now find the import a Pokemon span over here, and even we can match it as part of the test spec. This is what you get by combining the power of TraceTest and Cypress. So now let's move on to more specific thing, more fun part, that is the coding part section. So in this case, we're going to be looking at our test script. What we have added to make it work with TraceTest is we have we're importing the TraceTest Cypress package, and then we have a couple of steps that need to be followed in the Cypress script lifecycle hooks. So in the before section, we have the instantiation of the TraceTest library by passing the API token of our environment. And then we have in the before each hook, we have the capture step, which is going to be adding the HTML tag for the trace test parent, and it's going to keep track of our test and run inside of the trace test server. The last thing that is optional, as you can, if you saw in the previous section, is that you can add the summary step. The summary step is going to enable you to break or to kind of ignore the trace-based test depending on the result that you want. If you enable a summary and there's any of the trace-based tests that you have enabled, this whole script is going to fail. This is going to provide you with more information and more insight on what is happening in your tests. The last but not least, we have the body of the actual test, which as you can see, is entirely written by the specifications of Cypress. We are not modifying or updating or making you do any changes to this section. You can keep your own scripts, your own tests, and everything should work as expected. So now we have seen how it works. We can also take a look at the trace and the result. So with this integration, what you expect to see is the entire trace starting from the front end. So we have uh, a couple of spans depending on the document load section, which allows you to see all of the different assets and that the page loads at the beginning and the first initial render. But also you have the clicking and the events that the user trigger across the entire process, even the ones that trigger the actual import, the import mechanism or the import feature, which after clicking the OK button, you can see that we have the fetch client-side request. Then the second section, we have the Node.js service receiving the information, validating the request, putting the message to the queue, and then running the database and HTTP requests at the second half of the process. You can also see the subsequent requests after to refresh the list of the Pokemons that we see in the UI from both the front-end fetch client and the service getting that information and reaching out to the different databases queries. So we have the Postgres ones and the Redis one. Last but not least, you can add assertions based on these traces. So you can have the specific information or checks depending on the trace you expect it to be generated by your processes. So yes, to recap, this is by combining the power of Cypress and Tracetest, you have the end-to-end capabilities from Cypress with the trace-based testing from Tracetest, by enabling you to create assertions based on the entire process starting from the browser. I hope this was helpful. We're really excited to show you and showcase all of this with you. And yes, stay tuned. We have a community Slack server that you can join, ask questions. And yeah, thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.